Hi, I'm back. This is Travel Log 3, Video Log 3, but basically the second part. I made a first part up on the roof of a castle, but due to the high winds and people were starting to give me a pretty weird look. I kind of got distracted and I kind of ended it prematurely, but I'll tack it on to this one. So basically, we had a busy day today and a very long day. We were out by about 8 in the morning, and I just got home now. It's about 10 o'clock London time. First thing we did was we walked about almost a good part of an hour to the bus meeting space. It was on the other side, a couple of bridges down, and that's where we met the tour bus. We got on board and found there was about another 3 people already on there. And they were on the tour with us. So it was a nice, good group, a quaint group. Actually, sorry, 4 of us, because it was a total of 6 of us and then a driver. And basically what we did was we traveled, I'd like to say, about an hour and a half south of here. We went to Canterbury, more specifically the Canterbury Cathedral. We stopped there. The driver took us around town, showed us some really neat sights, and we got to see the cathedral. It is an ancient cathedral, but it is huge, very Gothic looking. They were doing a lot of restoration work on the shell outside, so there was a lot of scaffolding and whatnot. But we did get in, which is very lucky because it's Palm Sunday right now. So there was a lot of lineups, a lot of people, and they were preparing for a service. They only allowed access from something like 12-ish to about 1. So we had to get out of there by 1. But it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible seeing the artistry, the intricate designs. I've used the word intricate a lot. But a lot of these chapels and castles that I'm seeing in Europe are really well designed, especially churches when you figure they were designing art for their God, our God, whoever. So it was just awe-inspiring to see. We made our way into the cathedral. We got to talk with a few of the guides there. There are many little sub-rooms dotted throughout the cathedral, which are essentially tombs. So there are a lot of people buried right on the grounds. And when we finished with the top level, which housed some great items from war flags that were 500 years old, to a Bible that's dated from the 1800s. And to see it, I have some pictures if any of you want to see it. It is incredible. We made our way down to what a lot of you will find the coolest part, the crypts. Yes, this thing had a crypt in the basement, and it's exactly what you think. It is dark. It is a dungeon. But it's not like, dripping cobwebs. But it's very dark, a lot of stone floors, stone monuments, statues, a lot of tombs are down there. But there's also services held, so there was a lot of chairs, and it wasn't very well lit, a lot of candles, some creepy alcoves, but there are like little mini chapels dedicated to people. There was a Jesus chapel, there was a Lady of so-and-so chapel, and so forth. Again, I don't think I was supposed to take pictures, and I feel bad about this. I didn't see a no photography sign when I went down into the chapel. So I started taking all kinds of pics. And then on the way out, I did see a sign. So I'm not sure if it was specific to one room or the whole crypt, but I put away my phone quickly. But trust me, I got a lot of photographs. And for you Supernatural fans, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what came out on those. I'm not going to look too deeply tonight on this little phone. I'm going to wait until I get back to Canada and put it on the laptop. But I'll post a few on Facebook and maybe a few to specific people if they ask. but it was incredible to see. It was almost a mix of an ancient church with a dungeon, if you can imagine that. Creepy, but awe-inspiring. I'm using a lot of these words. After that, we basically walked around the outside of the church and into the town of Canterbury. Canterbury is very nice. It is beautiful. It is the quaint little village town, and thankfully there isn't a Burger King or a Walmart or any of those modern garish big box stores or anything like that, ruining what is otherwise a beautiful small village. Like even walking up and down the streets, and I have a few pictures of that, it's little cobblestone thin streets where a car might come up and down once every 20 minutes, 15 minutes, but otherwise people walk all over the street. There's all kinds of little shops. There was Rhonda's going to love this one. There was a dog store. It's actually called the Dog Store. I have some really cool pictures where they have wine for cats and beer for dogs. I don't know how close to the real thing it is, but they actually do have this. There's also Union Jack themed dog pillows and stuff like that. I did say there was one or two things for cats, but it was mostly a dog store. Let's see. Otherwise, after that, we went to, we got back to the bus, met up with everybody, and then we went to Dover Castle. I felt this was the highlight of the whole day. Seeing this castle that was built around 1200, if I remember. I'd have to look up the exact date again, but it's around that time. On the side of a cliff, you know, it's just beautiful. I think I increased my photograph count by about 300 at least, just at this castle. Just going up the steep hills, you know, with the bus, parking, and then having to go wind through the castle, through thin stone curving, you know, spiraling steps, through small alcoves and dungeon-like tunnels to get to the roof. And the roof was, words escape me, but I that's where I started a video log, part one of this. It was windy. It was a lot colder because it's right next to the ocean. But and then people were starting to give me a couple of looks. So, like I said, I stopped it, short stopped it. But it's just incredible to see the view from way up there, and to be on the top of a castle doing it. This is the kind of thing this is the kind of experience you cannot get back home. You can go to the top of Castle Loma in Toronto. You're not going to get anywhere near this kind of experience. It was just... Oh, I've run out of great words. But being a historian and being a fan of English history, this was worth the trip alone. It was fantastic. We got to then go to the bottom of Dover Castle where there's tunnels in the cliffs. The brief explanation for those is during World War II, France was taken over by Germany, and the Germans were firing over the channel and at boats and whatnot, and they were doing air raids, attacking Dover, because Dover is the southernmost point of England. So it was a very easy entry point for them if they could. Obviously, they never took over Dover Castle. Nobody, I found out, has ever taken over Dover Castle. I tried to joke with one guide and say I'd love to make a sales pitch to buy this castle, just because it is so incredible. But back to the point, these tunnels that were underneath the castle were used during World War II because it was a garrison. It was a station point. Soldiers would defend the coast there. There was tons of cannons and anti-aircraft guns and whatnot. Cannons mostly were for the earlier hundreds of years before, you know, invaders coming up from France, you know, England, King Henry times. But the World War II part of it is there was a military hospital in these tunnels underneath the castle, right in the cliff. It sounds cool, and it is kind of cool to go in there and see it. But from the guide's impressions and from what I saw, It is not a fun time during World War II to be there. Surprisingly, they only saw about 350 soldiers, injured soldiers, come in there to be treated. Nobody died in that hospital. It wasn't a great time. There was a lot of very bad injuries from what we found out, but nobody died, thankfully. But the conditions inside those tunnels are almost like being in a fallout shelter. Big metal support archways above you and, very bad ventilation tubes. They also had all the items were authentic. Papers from that time, diary books, chess sets, radios. Everything was pretty much authentic, aside from some modern plastic food put on the plates to give it the impression of what they ate and stuff. But otherwise, everything was there, and it was sprayed with a special chemical that's a preservative, I think is the word. But they said don't touch it because it's not good for skin, so I kind of kept my hands to myself. But it can get very musty, they said, down there, obviously, and it was not a pleasant time, and, infection was almost nightmarish down there, keeping out vermin. Excuse me. But it was an incredible experience to go through those labyrinth of wartime tunnels. And once we finished that, then the driver took us to the Cliffs of Dover, the White Cliffs of Dover. The group went out to go check that out. That's one event I stayed away from. By this point, I was getting a little bit tired, and I really wanted to just kind of go and have a coffee at the cafe shop, have something to eat. So the driver and I went in there, and we chit-chatted, and he got me coffee, and it was, just a nice relaxation point while the rest of the group went to the cliffs and took some pictures. On top of that, I'm not crazy about high heights, so being near the cliffs with no barrier, kind of staying away from that. So that was the day. And then we got back. It was a 2-hour drive back to London. But it was a good trip. Listened to some music, fell asleep in the bus, but it was good. Now a few words about the people. The people I met were exceptional. I met a young kid from Germany who's here learning. I met a kid from Mexico who was up here for a wedding, and he decided to have a free day and then took a tour. I got to meet a really young guy from Switzerland and a lady from Spain. So meeting all these people from all over the globe, we made friends with them. We even exchanged some emails. We got to hang out and talk and go around these sites together. So this was definitely a big highlight of my European tour, was meeting all these great people who, admittedly, I'm probably never going to run into again. But hopefully I made a good impression on them, which means a lot to me, especially since we represent Canada, Chris and I. So showing that Canadian hospitality and befriending people from other countries means a lot. And it was a great experience, and it was kind of, sad we had to shake hands and say goodbye to everybody, and hopefully I'll talk to them on Facebook, but that was the majority of the day. When we got back to London, Chris and I decided to walk from the drop-off point home. About almost an hour's walk, but it was a good walk. The cool evening air, woke us up a bit. We stopped at a really nice pizzeria, and we're talking like a sit-down Italian restaurant kind of pizzeria. It's called Pizza Express. Don't let the name fool you. We had a barbacoa beef pizza. We had lemon and herb chicken wings and some really nice dessert to go with it. Warm lemon sponge cake with ice cream and fresh mint tea. We're talking like a see-through mug with actual tea leaves in it. And I have pictures of the food if you want to see, which I'm sure nobody's going to want to see that because it's just bragging at this point. But it was incredible. I'll end the video now. This was the third day for us, technically. I know it's the second full day in London, but it was the third day of our trip. So I'm calling it the third day. I'll upload the beginning, the part 1 of this travelogue with me on the roof. It's incomplete, but seeing the view behind me and whatnot is actually really cool. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next video. Cheers.